this video, we're talking about addition and subtraction of signed numbers. And remember that signed numbers are just numbers that have a sign, either a positive sign or a negative sign. So every number is always going to be a signed number because it's either going to be a positive number or a negative number. So when we say addition and subtraction of signed numbers, we're just talking about adding two positive numbers together, or adding two negative numbers together, or subtracting a negative number from a positive number, or subtracting a negative number from a negative number. So these are all operations of addition and subtraction that we're doing with signed numbers. So let's take a look at a couple of examples, and we're going to plot these on our number line so that we get a better idea of how it works when we add and subtract signed numbers. So in our first example here, we have positive 1 plus a positive 3. We all know that's going to be a positive 4. That's simple addition. And the way that we know that, if we look at our number line, is we always start at the origin here at 0, and we want to move over 1 unit because we have a positive 1. So because we move to the right when we have positive, and we move to the left when we have a negative number, we're going to move to the right 1 unit. So we're going to move to the right 1 unit, and we're going to be right here. Then, because we're adding a positive 3, we want to continue moving to the right 3 more units. So 1, 2, 3 more units, and you can see that we end up here at 4, which is why we get a positive 4 when we add those two numbers together. On the other hand here, we're adding together two negative numbers. So here we added two positive numbers, and here we're adding two negative numbers. When we have a negative number, it tells us to move to the left on the number line instead of to the right on the number line. So when we have this negative 1 here, we start at the origin and we move to the left 1 unit because we have negative 1. So we move to the left 1 unit. Then because we're adding a negative 3, we want to continue moving to the left 3 more units. 1, 2, 3, and we get to negative 4 here. So this is going to be equal to negative 4, and the number line shows us that when we take negative 1 plus a negative 3. If on the other hand here we have a positive 2 plus a negative 1, so we have a positive number added to a negative number, what we're going to do is start at positive 2. That means that we start at the origin and we move to the right in the positive direction 2 units. So we start at the origin, we move 2 units to the right in the positive direction, and then we add to that a negative 1, which means that we're going to go back to the left 1 unit. So we go back to the left 1 unit, and we end up right here at positive 1. So positive 2 plus a negative 1 is going to be equal to a positive 1. And these two examples should make sense to us because remember, adding a negative number is just like subtracting. So negative 1 plus a negative 3 is the same as negative 1 minus 3. Same thing here, we would have had a positive 2 plus a negative number just becomes a minus. So 2 minus 1, both of those are going to give us the same answer here, negative 4, and here we get a positive 1. So if we look at our next example here, we have a negative 3 plus a positive 2. Adding a positive is still just adding. So this is negative 3 plus 2. Here we're adding a negative number, which we know is the same as subtracting, so we get a minus 2. So if we plot this on our number line, we start at the origin. We want to move to the left 3 units because we have a negative 3. So we say 1, 2, 3 units to negative 3. Then we're adding a positive 2. We want to go back to the right 2 units. So 1, 2. And then we're subtracting a negative number. So we're just going to the left. This is like adding a negative. We go back to the left 1, 2, and we end up right here at negative 3. So this is going to be equal to negative 3. And of course this should make sense to us because when we add a positive 2 and then add a negative 2, that's an inverse operation. We're adding 2 and we're subtracting 2. And you can see when we simplified, we got a plus 2 and a minus 2. And those are going to cancel with each other. Positive 2 and a negative 2, when we add those together, we get 0, and a negative 3 plus 0, negative 3 plus 0. We know that 0 is the identity number for addition, which means that adding 0 doesn't change the value of negative 3. So of course here we're just going to get negative 3. What this tells us is that we can look at subtraction in multiple ways. We said here in this example, we had 2 plus a negative 1 was the same as 2 minus 1. So this plus a negative just became 2 minus 1. It became a subtraction. Basically what we're doing is just inserting parentheses in our mind, but we don't write them. So if we look at this example here, we have a negative 4 minus 3. Well, that's the same as saying negative 4 plus a negative 3. That's the same thing. So we either have negative 4 minus 3, or we can say negative 4 plus a negative 3. So if it helps you to make everything addition and insert these parentheses, you can do that. So we have negative 4 plus a negative 3 plus 2, and we could put parentheses around this also and say plus a positive 2. Here we have minus 4, but we could also say plus a negative 4, minus 3 or plus a negative 3, and minus 2 or plus a negative 2. So now you can see we've connected everything with addition, so it sort of takes away the subtraction and allows us to add everything together. So if we now add all of our negative numbers together, we have a negative 4 plus a negative 3 is a negative 7, so that's a negative 7, plus a negative 4 is a negative 11, plus a negative 3 is a negative 14, plus a negative 2 is a negative 16. So adding all of our negative numbers together, we get negative 16. The only positive number is this plus 2, so we say negative 16 plus 2. And if we think about this on our number line, negative 16 would have us start at the origin and move to the left 16 units, and then the positive 2 would have us come back 2 units, so the solution here is going to be negative 14. Now the tricky part here is when we get to subtraction of negative numbers. Up until this point we've just done addition of negative numbers, but here we're asking to find negative 2 minus a negative 3. We're subtracting a negative number. And in that case the reason it's tricky is because on our number line we're actually going to move in the opposite direction of the sign that's indicated. So in other words, if we go back and we look at a couple of these first examples, we had 1 plus 3. This positive sign, this plus sign here, indicates that we're going to go in the direction indicated by this positive 3. So because the 3 is positive, we would think that we're going to move to the right, and the positive sign tells us, yes, you are going to move to the right. Here, we had a negative 3, and this positive sign tells us we're going to move in the direction that is indicated by the negative 3, by the number that follows it. So negative 3 tells us we're going to move to the left, and the positive sign says, yes, you're going to move to the left. When we have a subtraction sign, on the other hand, we're going to move in the opposite direction indicated. So this negative 3 right here tells us we're going to move to the left because it's negative, but the subtraction sign says you're going to flip that operation. You're not going to move to the left, you're going to move to the right instead. So what this looks like is we're going to start at negative 2, we're going to start at the origin, and we're going to move to the left 2 units because we start with this negative 2. So 1, 2, and we get to negative 2 right here. Then, normally, if we were adding negative 3, we would continue moving to the left 3 units. But because we're subtracting negative 3, instead of moving to the left, we'll move back to the right 3 units. So 1, 2, 3, and that's going to get us right here to positive 1. So this is going to be equal to positive 1. Another way to remember that is that when you have negative signs back to back like this, when we're subtracting a negative sign, 2 negative signs back to back like this will cancel with each other and become a positive. You can cancel every 2 negative signs, so we have to pair them up and then we can cancel them. You can't cancel 3 negative signs that are back to back, just 2 at a time. So because we have exactly 2 here, we can cancel them out and they become a positive. So essentially, negative 2 minus a negative 3 becomes negative 2 plus a positive 3, or just negative 2 plus 3. And in that case, of course, we can see that we start at the origin and we move 2 units to the left to negative 2, and then we move 3 units to the right, positive 3, 1, 2, 3, and we get back to the same place that we landed when we subtracted a negative 3. So it's the same thing. We've just simplified by removing that double negative.